Welcome to the Am I Hunting Podcast. So on this episode, I'm doing a breakdown of my hunting gear because having the latest and greatest gear may not guarantee you a big buck, but it may help you in that endeavor or at least make you comfortable while doing it. All right, welcome to the Am I Hunting Podcast. Thank you for listening as always. Thank you for tuning in. So yeah, this episode is about gear, and I'm going to do a full breakdown of my hunting gear, at least a lot of the major components. Now, there are some things that, it really doesn't matter what type of equipment you're using or that instance. So, but this is going to be hitting a lot of the major points or things that I really focus on to make sure that the gear is right and that it's ready to go, essentially, especially as we're getting closer to November. We basically only have about 2.5 weeks until November 1st. So, basically making sure that I'm ready to go for, the Super Bowl, essentially, or the time that we're really looking forward to as deer hunters, as, slowly but surely the deer activity is increasing. These colder temperatures that we've been having have certainly helped out with that. Looking at the number of deer moving around, I'm seeing a lot of scrapes opening up. And it's just starting to feel like the time is, we're getting that slow build up to that time frame that we look forward to the most. So kind of working on some of that intel. I had one of my public land spots where I had on Friday had pulled a card, basically kind of seeing what kind of movement I've been getting. Lo and behold, probably one of the biggest bucks that I've seen on this, especially this parcel of land here. Showed up the day before at 8:30 in the morning, cruising along on this main trail that I have my camera overlooking the scrape. Basically at this point thinking that, with the wind or with the rain that we've got coming in, that night, that maybe the next morning he might come in, feel like he needs to freshen up that scrape or, basically be in the same area. So essentially went in there for basically targeting this one buck. He's a super wide 8-pointer. Again, just got the one picture of him. I've never seen him before. And so I slipped in there in a spot or in the tree that I thought was the best to kind of lay the groundwork. It basically overlooked the main trail, or at least what I thought was the main trail that had a historical scrape on there that I had kind of freshened up in years past and kind of made it a little bit, presented a little bit better, making sure that licking branch was in a good position and that, essentially when I start out the scrape for the year, I make sure there's a nice, bare dirt patch, all the vegetation and whatnot that might have grown in over the off season is kind of cleared away. A younger buck a couple days before had essentially spruced that up and cleaned it out again. And then this buck, again, first time seeing him on the camera, he came through, an hour, within shooting light. So set up in there, this main trail that I'm looking at, about 20 yards out, there is a secondary trail that runs off to essentially my right-hand side or my strong side. That at the time, I didn't think that was a trail that was utilized as much, but I was aware of it. Got around 8 o'clock in the morning. Everything was looking good. We had a wind coming out of the northeast, so my wind was good. And sitting there, next thing I hear is a twig snap, and it's basically right down below me. And sure enough, this giant buck came down. Basically, by the time I turned my head, he was about 10 yards to my right, and coming out of some thicker timber that I had basically in between where the two trails were. He had ultimately ran parallel with that cover and slipped in right underneath me before I knew he was there. And at that point, by the time I turned my head, he had actually turned his body essentially more or less facing me, spotted me up in the tree. He spooked a little bit, took a couple bounds behind a tree. At that point, tried to grab my bow, and from that movement, even though he was behind that pine tree that I didn't think he could see me all that well, there must have been enough movement where he spooked again. He bounded back to the direction he came from. It didn't sound like he went too far. It didn't sound like he just completely bolted out of there. He again kind of did a few bounds that sounded like, and then stopped. So kept my bow in my hand, thinking that maybe he'd circle back and try to go back the direction he still came from. Ultimately, he did that. Unfortunately, he was out now probably about 50, 60 yards, circling out away from the area. So it's one of those things where I feel like it was more like a soft bump where he didn't smell me. He didn't catch any of my scent. He just saw something in the tree that he didn't like that was moving around too much. And he, proceeded to go out and around where he thought he was safer and still head off in the direction he came from. So it was one of those things where I completely underestimated the capabilities of the deer, I guess, to be able to sneak in. I should have thought about it a little bit more, in depth, where there's a lot of pine needles in there. So actually the fact that I can sneak in there pretty quietly should know that the deer are going to be extremely quiet. The area too is pretty thick cover with a lot of, pine, and basically at different elevations, or not elevations, basically the growth period where there's a lot of immature trees mixed in with mature trees. So pretty thick cover. I mean, honestly, the farthest shot that I really had, at least from that tree, was about 25 yards. Anything outside of that, there was too much tree cover and they were out of range for me. So the fact that he was able to utilize this cover, get with underneath me, I wasn't able to hear him until it was too late. Basically just was a testament that I had the right idea, but I didn't really think about that. The idea of the deer being able to sneak in on me that close without me, catching them beforehand and being prepared. I thought I could utilize a lot of that thicker cover, get away with myself a lot more movement. I guess I underestimated the deer's ability to be able to utilize the same tactic on me. So, from there, pretty bummed out about missing an opportunity at the biggest buck, especially on public land, and having a buck that close. In general, I've never had an encounter with a buck that big, in a hunting scenario, as I did. So I was pretty tore up about it. My wife was getting tired of me complaining about it, or just, him and hawing about the whole situation. Basically had to do a breakdown of, what went wrong, how am I going to rectify it, and, did I just screw up that hunt, or screw up my ability to be able to hunt that buck, especially in that area. And ultimately, I think the way he spooked, he'll probably be back. It's just whether or not, I guess it all depends on how long it's going to take him to feel comfortable in that area again. Ultimately, what I've decided to do is I'm going to move, where I basically already did. I prepped another tree that's on the other side of that trail to where he can't sneak in, essentially behind me, kind of like what he was doing. Now I'm going to have everything in front of me, and I can see down that trail a little bit better. Now, the downfall is I'm not really in a position to be able to shoot at the scrape anymore, but I can still shoot on that trail where that scrape comes from. So essentially I have to let the deer kind of make it about 20 yards down the trail, either before or after the scrape, and then I still have a shot opportunity. So it kind of can get where I can see where both those trails kind of intersect and shoot at that. So basically the one trail is about 10 yards in front of me. The other one is, kind of pushing it a little bit further, is about 30 yards. So a little bit further than I would like on that trail. But the problem is too is, if I start pushing in any other direction, I start limiting myself on the wind directions that I feel safe to be in there, and the ability to, not have deer slip in behind me again. So hopefully another week or so, I'll be able to go back in there when the wind's again back in my favor. And then hopefully, again, I didn't bugger up that spot too bad to be able to have another opportunity at that buck. If not, if that buck is kind of wise up to the whole situation and avoids the area altogether, that is, again, another area where other bucks are going to be in that vicinity. So I may not have a shot at that buck, but I may get another opportunity at some other buck as well. So I'm certainly not going to, hold out solely for that buck. If there's another good buck in the area, they're potentially going to get an arrow sent their way as well. And then before we get into the topic at hand, again, as always, if you like this show, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and then also don't forget to head on over to mihuntingpodcast.com, head on over to the website, check out all the latest content. And if you want a little bit more out of it, become a member. Again, your membership supports this show directly, and then your membership will also grant you access to a special live show for members only, as well as exclusive discounts, as well as members only giveaways as well. So let's go ahead and get into some of this gear. Again, having certain gear is not going to make you a better deer hunter necessarily, but I do feel that, having gear that you're comfortable with and feel confident with is going to make you, again, have that better mindset of knowing that you can, achieve certain things, or, perform certain tasks while you're in the hunting woods. So, or again, if nothing else, it's going to make you more comfortable in the woods, to make you, paying attention more. If you're cold, if you're wet, you're going to be distracted. You're not going to be paying attention as much, and you're going to kind of not have the the focus that you need to be able to accomplish your goal of being out there hunting and making sure that you're not missing any deer movement. So let's get into this first gear here. So the very first thing, again, I'm going to talk about here is my bow setup. Now, again, individual bows is not going to necessarily mean that you're going to kill that big buck, or having the latest and greatest bow isn't going to make it to where you're going to be more successful necessarily. The big thing is with a bow is that is one that you are confident at shooting with, and that you're accurate, able to shoot, so it's a good fit for you. So this year I made a change to the Prime Rev X2. This is a bow that I kind of was hoping for, that was going to be kind of their lineup. So I was really excited about their Prime inline last year, understanding that a lot of times they're when a bow manufacturer makes a big change, is that a lot of times that technology or some of the stuff is not really refined. They come out with a brand new technology. They've certainly done all their testing and whatnot, but there's always like that year or two, and they make some improvements. So that's what I was waiting for with this Rev X, and they didn't disappoint in that regard. So the big thing with the Rev X is, again, they went with that single cam design, that inline cam design that's designed to be able to pull those cables into the closer to the center point, or in line with the arrow, and then that's to basically help they're designed to eliminate or minimize any cam lean when you make your drawback. The other big thing that I was impressed with, or that really got me excited, was their modular cam system. So back in the day, a lot of the bow manufacturers had these modular cams where you had to have a specific mod for your draw length. In recent years, a lot of the bow manufacturers have went with a adjustable draw length, where you can just like a little, just with a couple of set screws, you can adjust that draw length. Made it very easy to be able to make real quick adjustments to your draw length. I'm sure a lot of the bow manufacturers appreciate it, where they could just take out a couple of bolts, slide the little whatever adjustment, and then bolt it back down again, and you could fine tune that adjustment. Downfall is, especially with someone in my instance where I have a shorter draw length, is that as you shorten that length of that draw, you're losing part of that cam, or the movement of the cam, basically losing some of that power and essentially speed too of the bow itself. So basically making the bow less efficient, therefore making it not as not set up as if you had the using the full length of the cam essentially. And then some of the other features that they had with this bow is that they have a Prime Pacific Hamskea Epsilon res that's designed to match with their burger holes, or to mount the bow or mount the rest on the bow, so that the most of the rest is actually in line with the riser itself, again helping with some of that balance. And then they also partnered with Tight Spot to create a Pacific quiver for them, that again the mounting bracket is in line with the riser, and then that allows you to have that quiver much tighter to the bow itself, helping with that balance as well. So the one downfall, or a couple things with that too, that we realized, is that when we got it, it looked like everything was backwards. They don't make like a left and right quiver. You basically unbolt the brackets, and then you can flip that quiver around, whether you're a right-handed or left-handed shooter. So the one thing too, I thought I would like the idea of having a 5-arrow quiver. Now, in years past, in my previous bow, I had a 3-arrow quiver, and it did take a little bit of adjustment for me to have all these arrows on here, because I actually shoot with the quiver on the bow, so I have my quiver on at all times. So it's a little bit of adjustment having those additional arrows on there, a little bit additional weight, but certainly too something that it's just how I shoot, or how I like to shoot with the quiver on. I can do it without it, but I prefer to have it on. This is the bow of my choice. Now, again, the other thing that, or I guess the last caveat, or the last icing on the cake for me, is that this is with Prime being out of Michigan, it is a Michigan bow. So, that's one thing I appreciate, is being able to buy something in state or manufactured here in the state of Michigan as well. So I've been excited with the bow. I'm really impressed with it. Again, a lot of the other features, their little, specialty grip. Again, we haven't hit those cold temperatures yet, so I haven't really got the chance to see exactly how well this grip performs in regards to cold temperatures, but looking forward to it, essentially. I guess since I'm talking about the bow as well, I might as well talk about my arrow setup. Now, again, you can go kind of crazy when it comes to arrow setups, talking about arrows, broadhead types. So if you've listened to the show before, you kind of know my stance on it. Making sure that it's just the right arrow for you and your bow and what you want out of it. So this year, again, I'm shooting the gold tip airstrikes. This is a batch of arrows that I had from last year. Basically, is a small diameter, so it's not a micro diameter arrow. Very lightweight, so it is designed more for longer range shooting, and basically a high FOC. So it comes with an aluminum insert and aluminum collar on both the point end and the nock end as well. Basically helping protect the ends of that arrow a little bit. So this year I'm utilizing the new VPA Omega broadhead. Again, this is their new broadhead for the year. It's a patent pending lay flat technology, where for the single bevel, you don't need any special jig or anything like that to sharpen it. You just lay it flat on a stone. It has a little groove on it that helps guide to make sure you got the angle right. Again, high carbon steel for the construction, so nice and durable and maintains a good edge. And then for the back end, I've got a nocturnal lighted nock. I always like to shoot lighted nocks, even when I practice, primarily to be able to have the exact same nock that I'm going to hunt with, as well as so in the hunting situation, having that lighted nock, especially in that low light situation, you can try to pinpoint a little bit easier on exactly where the arrow went, especially if you get a pass through where you can see the spot where that nock finally disappears, to be able to pinpoint point of impact a little bit better. For the other part, I run heat vane, so I run a 4-fletch with a pretty aggressive offset. I added on a white wrap as well as 2 white fletchings to be able to help determine, again, a little bit better on, if I do get pass through or if I get blood on this end of the arrow, to be able to identify what type of blood it is, for better, judgment on when to do a track job, or, if it's something that, to be able to determine if it's liver blood or lung blood or something like that, help make those determinations. All right, so the next bit of gear is my new camo setup for the year. Now, again, same thing. You can have a significant debate on the type of camo, whether a certain pattern is better than one or the other. Honestly, as long as you, again, feel confident and you do feel like or if it does break up essentially your silhouette, that's what's important. The other big thing is being able to have equipment that's going to be able to hold up to some abuse, as well as manage the elements out there. So, again, you can be in an area where you can have sunshine in the morning, and then it's rain, sleet, or snow in the afternoon, and be able to have a gear that can kind of handle that as well. So what I'm switched over to this year is Origin, their new hunting line. The big thing with this is that I've been really particular about wanting to get a camo setup or get my hunting clothes that are American made. So, there's a lot of hunting brands out there. There's a lot of U.S. based hunting companies out there that have made the decision to do a lot of their manufacturing overseas, or have a lot of it done, not here in the United States. So, it's something that I've been, trying to transition to, and being able to buy U.S. made products. You will kind of notice the thing that a lot of the equipment here that I do run is either, try to made here in the state, or at least U.S. made. And in regards to especially hunting clothes, there's a lot of options out there, but stuff that's made in the U.S. is very limited. So there's only a handful of companies that actually manufacture, or at least the bulk of their manufacturing of their hunting clothes here in the States. So Origin is one that they actually source and make all their products here in the U.S. So I definitely want to give them a try this year. Unfortunately, they don't have any retail stores, at least especially not that I'm aware of. So it is all ordering off online. So I was a little hesitant about investing in a whole new clothing line and having not actually, got my hands on it beforehand or try it out beforehand. But so far I've been pretty impressed. I'm gonna break down each of the layer systems and kind of give you my, brief overview, or I guess a review of that equipment or of this clothing, at least so far in the season. So what I want to start out with is with their base layer. So essentially their system is a layering system. So they have basically an Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie layers, or system, or breakdown of their layers. So the first one we got is their stealth wool, or I'm sorry, nano wool, basically their base layer. Quite similar to any other hunting brand's base layers. It's a wool polyester blend. Again, basically designed to go underneath your external garment just to help keep you a little bit warmer. So with this here, it's a thinner. It's not a necessarily a heavyweight base layer. I would consider kind of like a light midweight garment, but with it, it's a basically a nice little base layer. One thing I will say with this is that it does manage the sweat a little bit better than some of like my older like army quality garments, where there's a lot more synthetics. With the wool, it does seem to be able to manage moisture a little bit better. Definitely not feeling like you're getting kind of swampy or getting too warm essentially so far with it. All right, so this next piece of garment is one that I'm actually very impressed with. Again, this is their base layer. This is their nano wool stealth hoodie. So I'm pretty excited about this one. This is actually one that it feels like so far has performed very well, especially in regards to the early season where we had those extreme temperatures. I did wear this as basically my outer layer, and even with that 80-degree weather, it seemed to manage to heat pretty well. I did get a little warm, but it did seem like this dried out, and I actually equalized my temperature relatively quickly with this. So again, it's designed to basically help keep you warm, but also to be able to breathe and to manage moisture. It does have a hood with it. Now, usually I'm not a fan of having my base layer with a hood, because I usually have a hood on either my jacket or the sweatshirt I'm wearing. So having a double up on the hoodie generally is not something I'm really looking forward to. But with this, again, with it being that lighter weight, and it actually, fits pretty well even when I have the hood down or when I have the additional layers on with a hood as well, that it doesn't seem to get too bulky, on the back of my neck or on my shoulders. So I'm pleased with that. Another thing that this has a built-in, basically the Ninja face covering. Again, I didn't know how much I was going to like that, having a part of the garment itself. But I'm actually pretty impressed when you either don't have the hood up or don't have the Ninja face up. That is not too bulky behind the neck there. But when you actually do have the hood up and the Ninja face covering up, it actually feels quite comfortable. I've actually hunted a couple different times with it up basically the whole time. The most of the garment itself is just the same fabric as the rest of the hoodie is, and it does have an elastic bit on the top that goes over the bridge of the nose, so it doesn't feel like it's basically cinched down on the entire face and not real tight on the face, but it does have that nice secure elastic band that goes over the nose. Not too tight though, to where it feels like it's digging in or anything like that, or causing too much discomfort. So pretty good in regards to comfort, and the fact that it's again, I'm pretty impressed with the feel of the actual having that hood with the Ninja face covering as well. The other thing I really appreciate about this garment is that it does run long on the body itself. So it actually hangs down, kind of, lower on my waist, to where it's either long enough where if you leave it untucked, that when you sit down or as you bend or move or anything like that, it's not going to ride up on your back. You'll feel that, you won't feel that draft of, cold air on your back or a breeze on your back because of that garment getting cinched up. And it's also long enough where if you tuck it into your pants, that it's not going to, basically once that first movement become untucked essentially and cause the same issue for you. So I'm very pleased with the base layer of the Origin Hunt line so far. Certainly something that, it will be probably, worn on every hunt that I do this year. The next piece of their line is, as we move up into the layers here, is their Nylock field pant. Again, this one here is, again, it is a quality product, I would feel. The big thing is definitely more suited for either early season, or more so on their probably more on like a western front side, where you're doing a lot more walking around, you're moving around a lot more. These pants feel like that's kind of what they're more designed for. So again, they're a lightweight pant. So in regards to as you're moving around, or as you're hiking, or if you're doing any spot and stock type stuff, it's definitely one that you're not going to get overheated with or start really feeling bulky with it. I did notice that once you're in the stand, especially with these colder temperatures that we've been getting, that my legs do feel like they're getting a little chilled, or I can start feeling some of that cold radiating, from my legs up as, I sit there for, several hours. So even with the base layer, these pants would be good for, I would say, I don't know what they're actually rated for, or I don't remember anyways, but I would say that these are good for maybe, temperatures in the 50s if you're not in a high wind area. Anything lower than that, you are going to potentially start feeling chilled if you don't layer up additional. So if you do have, their base layer on, you could add a secondary layer to maybe bulk this up a little bit, and you might feel comfortable. But with just the original base layer and the pant itself, with some of the colder temperatures, especially if you start getting some wet and rainy conditions, you could start to feel a little chilled with this. So this last hunt, I did end up busting out my older set of camo pants that are a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier, and I was just perfectly comfortable with these cold temperatures. So they did come out with another, they do have an additional layer pant that's going to be much more suited for late season, as well as they just came out with another, mid-level pant that's going to match the jacket that we're going to cover next year. So this one here, again, another piece of equipment that I'm actually quite pleased with. So this is their stealth wool jacket. This is, again, part of their Bravo line, or that outerwear clothing. I am very impressed with this. Basically, it's a blended wool jacket, and it's actually performs quite well. It's not a heavy late season jacket. It's more of like a mid-weight, mid-season jacket, which typically fits kind of with what I typically like to wear. Generally, in years past, I would wear like a lightweight or like a mid-weight sweatshirt, and then layer underneath of it, so where I didn't feel too bulky or have too much of a thick, heavy layer on top. At least on the top end, I like to feel like I have a little bit more space to work with and not feel too overly bulked. So far with the jacket itself, with wearing that Ninja hoodie, it matches the hood system with this jacket quite well. They actually kind of interline with each other, to where if you have both up, it feels like you're actually just wearing one hood, instead of having like two separate hoods where they're shaped differently or feel a little bit different. They generally have the same kind of outline or cutout, so they actually mesh together quite well. They do have additional, the same material as their Nylock product on the shoulders. So this is for if you're carrying a backpack or something like that, it's not going to wear out on the rest of the fabric. And with the jacket so far, even with some of the rain and the wind, it does do a good job of, again, managing moisture. So as it gets wet, it's not, with the wool, it's not going to degrade its ability to be able to keep you warm. So even if you were in a heavy rain or were absolutely soaked, this would still help keep you warm. Again, you may not feel the most comfortable being all wet, but it is going to be able to manage being able to keep you warm even when wet. So one thing I did notice too is that, especially in a high wind situation, or as we continue to get colder, that with this jacket as well, it may not be enough to be able to ward off all the elements, or at least keep you warm, for especially if you did extended hunt. So as we get closer to the rut, if you're out there for more than the typical few hour sit, if you're going to be out there all day, or be extended out there into the morning, or sit longer in the afternoon, you may start to feel chilled with this. So I did test out real quick with the jacket of being able to throw on. So I had the main base layer, and then basically all I did was throw on my puffy vest that I have. So again, I don't even know what the brand is of this guy here, but it's just kind of that mid-weight down vest. Again, very lightweight, kind of like a midweight vest here. I threw that underneath the threw this on top of the base layer, the Ninja hoodie, and then underneath the wool jacket. Again, didn't feel too bulky. Again, being able to just keep the core warm and allow for the dexterity of the arms by having it just be the vest seemed to work out pretty good. To be able to add additional warmth. I did notice, because I did wear all the equipment in, I did get a little bit warmer walking in with all the layers. So again, if you were to shed a layer and walk in and add the later, then you would probably be better off doing it that way and not getting too warm. But again, even with all the layering, it was able to, or I didn't feel like I was, soaking wet or, had a lot of wet gear on in the stand. It did seem that whatever sweat I had accumulated did evaporate off, or start to feel like I was still dry essentially. Shortly after being set up in the stand for a few minutes. So far, very impressed with the Origin line. Again, I am going to look into getting some of their other systems, especially as we get later into the season. So far, what I've got is their early to mid-season, equipment or apparel here. So, I'd either have to focus on adding more additional layers or being able to, get into some of my older equipment that's more suited for the late season. If I didn't purchase the other layers as well. But so far, very impressed with it. Again, 100% USA source and USA made. So there's that, again, that icing on the cake for me in regards to the hunt line. And price point, they're actually very good. So that's one thing I forgot to mention too, is that for a lot of the US made equipment, you're looking at, additional, cost to you to have that US product, just because of the cost of manufacturing is going to be higher here than it is when it gets shipped overseas. Price point though is probably on par or even better in some instances than some of the other hunting lines out there that aren't made in the US, that you may even pay more for the individual pieces of clothing. Competitive wise and for price point, you're not going to see anything more than what you would see for any other type of higher end hunting clothes from any other manufacturer. All right, so the last bit of gear that I'm going to cover is for basically my stand setup or my saddle setup. Like essentially, again, I was hesitant to get into saddle hunting. Basically, I kind of saw that it was getting gaining traction and popularity. I'm like, what? I don't know if I want to get into all that. Ultimately, decided that I wanted to give it a try, and especially don't hate it till you try it type of deal. And I was actually pleasantly surprised that it worked out quite well for at least my styling of hunting, where I really liked being more lightweight, and I like the idea of being able to be mobile. So again, that's probably the one thing that really caught my eye on the most, is that I wouldn't have a mobile tree stand that I would take with me and whatnot. But again, even that seemed like it was quite a process, and I really wasn't really eager to move a stand or whatnot. Saddle system is a little bit lighter, a little bit easier for me, which really made it a selling point for me. So the one I've got here is from Tuebor Saddles. This is their hammock style. So as you see, a very big piece of fabric here. It does kind of look a little daunting, but the idea was that being that larger size is that it incorporates basically a larger area for added comfort. So you can actually have basically kind of wrapped quite a bit in the saddle itself. Helps eliminate those pinch points or areas where it just feels like everything's kind of bunched up on you. One thing that you will notice too is that for the bridge system, it does look kind of complicated with all these straps here, but it's actually, when I first got it, I was actually kind of intimidated by all the number of straps that we have and just things kind of hanging off of it. But you get the saddle on and everything just kind of falls into place, and it's just, those straps again are for to be able to maintain those pinch points and essentially your customization of how you have that feel of the saddle itself. So got a strap up here to adjust your bridge and the tightness of the top part of the saddle, and then a quick little pull here, loosen the strap, tightens up the bottom part. So you can really again fine tune that. They have the additional straps with the loops here, so you can actually do it one-handed. So on either side, especially on the bottom part, I loop my thumb through the loop itself, pull however much I need. If I need to cinch it up, I want to feel a little bit more, tightness around the lower part of the saddle. If I want to loosen up, just pull the little tab on the strap itself, and it pulls the slack out for you. So easy one-handed operation in that regard. And then for the securing the belt, again, it's got inside part of the saddle itself. It's got a strap with a buckle system for your waist belt. Clips together, and then you can cinch it up on either side there. So typically what I do is I leave that tight as I walk in, nice and high on my waist. When I get into, once I'm in the tree and settled with my tether, loosen that up, cinch that or slide that saddle down a little bit for a little bit better comfort. Do have the 2 pouches for the gear. So this side I have my lineman's belt. On this other pouch I have my tether as well as my gear strap with bow hook on it. Now I'm not going to get too much in detail with this because it's pretty standardized equipment for saddle hunting. And then again, you can always pick on what type of bow hook you want. I'm actually looking at getting a little bit bigger one because the one I've got now doesn't quite fit all the well with the with my bow with the quiver on it. If I were to take the quiver off, it would probably work a lot better. But again, I'm just going to get a little bit larger hook to be able to manage that going forward. One thing I did manufacture myself here is I got some 550 cord and a little cinch to be able to cinch down my climbing sticks onto the belt. So as I climb up, I can do it all in one motion and not have to, climb back down the tree to get my sticks again. Pretty common setup for most individuals that run a saddle system to have some form of a way to attach the sticks to the saddle as they climb, eliminating need for multiple trips up and down the tree. So that's just what I came up with. It seems to work pretty good. The cinches down, and it has a little 550 cord cinch. Pull that down, tightens the loop. Pull that cinch back, releases the climbing stick. So the one thing I did forget to mention with the Tuebor saddle, or actually 2 things, like I said, now I can see that I forgot to mention something here. So the one other thing that I have on my saddle is this Allen essentially bow tether here. It's basically a spring-fed or spring-loaded, tow rope essentially. So I can attach this to my bow when I'm on the ground before I go up. Once I'm all set up, pull this up with the string and get in place. Now the one downfall with it is some heavy-duty plastic, a little bit heavy. Also, I do have to get some more stealth strip to put on to quiet this up a bit. But I do like the fact that it's kind of spring-loaded, so I don't have any loose strings kind of hanging off me. It keeps that tension on there, so I don't, basically get tangled up as I'm moving around. Whereas I come back down the tree again, it just pulls all the slack, keeping that rope out of the way as much as possible. The one thing I did want to really make sure I highlighted is, again, with Tuebor, they are, again, a Michigan company. So, again, buying local type deals. So, again, I'm very happy with their hammock style. Initially when I looked at it, I didn't know how much I'd be impressed with it, but it is quite comfortable. Certainly I have done some extended sits in it and ran into no issue with comfort. Again, one of the big things I was most hesitant about with the saddles especially is that I do have a bit of a bad back. So sitting in the stand for an extended period of time, I do start feeling some soreness in my back, especially in the lower back there. With the saddle systems, with the customization that you can do with your ability to fine-tune the angles and the tightness of the saddle and how far you're leaning back and whatnot, very comfortable in regards to, especially with someone with a bad back, being able to stay in the tree for a long extended period of time as well. So since we're on the topic of the saddles, this is essentially my pack as I go in. So again, many different people will run it different ways. This is just what I like to use and what works for me. So most people wear a standard backpack. That's pretty common. I actually like running this sling pack here, where again it's just one strap here and it slings over on the side. The big thing with this is I'm able to essentially still get set up in the tree without having to take the pack off necessarily. And I can now still basically get to all my equipment just by swinging that pack around. So as a quick demonstration, I can swing this pack around, get to the front part of it. One-handed, I can release the straps on the bottom. They're holding my sticks. swing the pack back around, attach my sticks to my saddle. From there, I can climb up the tree. When I'm ready for my platform, swing my pack back around, undo the strap that's holding the platform on, and I have my platform in hand, slide my pack back around behind me, and then from there, I can attach my platform, get set up, and then from there, I take my pack off, hook it onto part of the little bracket that's on my gear strap that's on the tree, and it just makes it a little bit easier for me. So again, a lot of people wear the backpacks. I like to run this. That way I can swing it around, have it in front of me if I need to, get what I need to for gear-wise, slide the pack back out of the way. One thing I forgot to mention is to display the type of sticks that I've run so far, but I didn't really highlight them. So what I've got here is a 3 stick helix, or the helium sticks, very common, kind of that mid to low price point. They're very easy to get. I actually have some of the new Latitude carbon sticks on the way. There's a bit of an issue with some giving my information to them that delayed some of the shipping, so I haven't gotten them yet, but I will be running those for the remainder of the season once they do come in. I have the Trophy Line platform. I think it's the EDP, I believe it is. Just fits with the pack well, and I like the idea with how the brackets line up, matches with the belt system. Relatively comfortable platform. It's not overly bulky, so it's not too heavy or too much to manage getting set up, but it is big enough to where it is still comfortable, where I can move my feet around a little bit if I need to, and not have to worry about too much with pressure points or get my feet sore or having that radiate up into my knees or anything like that, but not being comfortable in where I'm standing. And then as we get into some of the more, probably not necessarily the big items in regards to the gear or things I always make sure that I have with me. These are things that are not necessarily necessary, I guess I should say, but it is something that I do make sure that I'm utilizing when needed. So again, as part of my scent control regiment, I used to always make sure kind of went a little, I guess, I would say overboard. Some would say probably not so much, or I didn't do enough essentially, but basically making sure that all my hunt clothes were scent free. So I would wash them quite often, and basically almost every hunt I would get those garments clean and try to de-scent them in some way. So I'm either washing them or hosing down with some scent eliminating spray. Have played around a little bit with ozone. I did run a couple times in the years past a actual ozone device in the stand. Part of that, it seemed like it worked. It's going to do what it's supposed to do and eliminate some of the scent, but I didn't like the fact of having the fan blown or having additional noise. For me, I could notice, especially with being in the stand with it, you could notice that additional fan noise and whatnot. So I actually opted to go with a smaller this is a scent slammer little portable ozone generator. This works perfectly in throwing it in my tote with my hunting gear. So before if I've just washed my equipment, or when I'm just done hunting and I threw everything back in the tote, I'll power this on and let it run in the time it takes me to get home. So in that enclosed, smaller space, this is going to pump out just enough of that ozone to potentially kill any bacteria that would cause any, scent buildup on your clothing. Just kind of helps manage it without having to go through all the process of washing all that equipment again. So this is one thing I've been running for the past couple of years now, and I'm very happy with it. It does seem to help, minimize that scent profile. Again, you're never going to be able to get all your scent eliminated where you're not going to beat the deer's nose, but it does help manage that a little bit better than, not doing anything at all. And it's relatively easy. Turn the device on, throw it in your tote, you get home, grab your tote, turn it off again. Or I've even, at times just kind of forgotten about it, let it run, and then when I'm ready to go for the next hunt, this is either shut off because it's ran out of power, or it's, still running essentially. So simple way to manage your scent. Again, the biggest thing to do is to utilize the wind, but in instances where you're hunting off wind or wind swirling a little bit, you could buy maybe a step or two by managing your scent profile by eliminating some of your scent off your clothing. Next one is, again, this is more so in regard to as we're getting closer into the latter part of the season, when we get in these colder temperatures. So I am one that I really become not focused when I start to get cold, especially in my feet. If my feet are getting cold while on the stand, then that takes a lot of my ability to focus out of it, and a lot of my motivation to stay out a little bit longer. So I've tried different things of trying different socks combinations, and one thing that I just learned was that again, the biggest issue is that I'd have like thick wool socks on or something like that, so I'm nice and warm. Problem is my feet would get wet, and then start to get cold. So what I ended up doing was taking just some antiperspirant, rubbing this on my feet before I put my socks on going out. And it was, I would say, it's probably a game changer for me in regards to being able to maintain my feet not getting wet and then getting cold while out hunting. Basically by not allowing my feet to sweat, it actually maintains the performance of the footwear and those socks, be keeping everything dry, and it allows me to be far more comfortable in the stand when out, especially in the cold temperatures. Even when you're getting into the teens or single digit type deal, just having everything stay dry, everything stays warmer. So again, this is just that, it doesn't really matter what type of antiperspirant you use. I'll certainly go with something that's, scent free. So I think I got the, scent killer antiperspirant here again. So I basically, at this point, put a little bit on my armpits and then put a little bit on my feet to make sure that my feet stay nice and dry in the stand. Next one is, again, not necessarily anything new for most people, but it's always having basically some milkweed or some form of scent check. So I love using milkweed. Again, you can get it for free, and it does a really good job of staying in the, being visible for an extended period of time. So if you get some of those powder, scent checkers and whatnot, once that powder kind of disperses a little bit, as it gets further away from you, it makes it harder to see unless you're using a ton of it. Whereas the milkweed, if you put enough of it out where you can see it, you can actually watch it go through, 20, 30, 40 yards even out, depending on, the terrain and whatnot, if it's going to be up in the air that long. So you can really see what that wind's doing for a longer period of time or a longer distance out. So again, this is nothing new for a lot of hunters. A lot of people utilize the milkweed. I just make sure that I always have it. I keep it in an old pill jar, essentially. Keeps it nice and dry. So this is actually the second season with this batch of milkweed. And again, with it being sealed in the pill bottle, no issue with it getting wet or not being able to utilize it, after rain or even during the rain, of being able to see what's going on. So in the next piece I wanted to talk about in regards to especially keeping warm, the next big thing that will be a deal breaker for me is if my hands start getting cold. Now again, even if you're wearing gloves or lightweight gloves, eventually, your hands are going to get cold or start to feel chilled a little bit. So basically, again, hand warmers. So what I typically like to do is, of course, have a few of those disposable chem bag hand warmers where you open them up, shake them up, and then they warm up. Downfall with those especially is that you got to always disposable when you're done with them, and always make sure that you get them prepped and ready to go. So what I've started accumulating over the past couple seasons is these electronic little hand warmers. So basically they're just cheap little hand warmers essentially. So these, again, just a couple examples of what I've got. I don't even know what the brand of them is. The other nice thing is too is that with them being electric, is that if you did have your cell phone or something like that, they usually do come with some for report, so you can use these as a power bank. So if for whatever reason you're on your phone too much, or you've got to charge your phone over the night or something like that, you could use these as a power bank as well. And these typically do last a little bit longer too, and especially too if they get wet. So if you're in really soggy weather, or if you happen to drop them or something like that, it's not going to affect the performance of them getting too wet. They're just going to keep operating even though if things should get a little soggy. So again, really easy to throw into your pocket, or if you have like a little muff pouch or something like that, you can throw one of these in there, and it generally keeps the the warmth throughout the course of the day. Now, if you were going to do an all-day sit, you might want to grab 2 of them, run one, and then once this one eventually dies, run the other one. So same thing like you would for any other like chemical, hand warmers. Again, not necessarily something that's going to make you, a better hunter, but being able to be comfortable out in the stand is very important as well, to be able to maintain your focus and stay out there for that extended period of time, especially, again, as we get closer to the rut. If you're doing an extended sit or if you're trying to do an all-day sit, just being comfortable in the stand is going to make it, easier to stay focused and whatnot and not miss the deer that you're out there, hanging out in the tree for. So, and then that's it for a lot of the main pieces of gear that I wanted to cover. Now there's, again, a vast array of other gear that you could, look at or cover. But that's just kind of the main things I want to cover with this one, as some of the things that I find as key elements of the gear that I use, that I hunt with. So with that, we're going to wrap this one up. So again, we're getting into that perfect timing where everything's starting to ramp up, starting to see more and more deer activity. And before we know it, it's going to be the rut and it's going to be exciting. So good luck out there. And as always, get out there, be safe, and have fun.